These next few videos, I'm going to go over the pronunciation of Chichewa. So in this video, we'll start going over sounds that are generally the same as in English and show how they sound in context. First, vowels. There are 5 vowels in Chichewa, which if you know Spanish or Swahili, are pronounced almost the same as the 5 vowels in those languages. A, E, I, O, U. Just be mindful that in English we pronounce most vowels as diphthongs, meaning even though we write one letter, we actually say 2 sounds. When I say the sound A, my mouth actually moves twice. A. By contrast, the sound should be short and crisp in Chichewa, just E. This is true of all vowels, and so we're going to go through some example words and translations. So the first example word is amalume. I just want to note the accent mark above the U here. Chichewa is a tonal language, or pitch accented if you prefer, because it just has 2 tones, high and low. I'm going to get into this in a lot more detail in another video, but for now just know that I am going to be marking high tones with this acute accent. So if you don't see the acute accent, it's low toned, and if you see it, that means that syllable is high toned. I'm just going to point out that this is not normally done in the writing system, and many native speakers are actually not even aware that the language is tonal, but I find that it's helpful for learners. The next example word, edzi, inde, onda, and ufa. Another thing to note about the tones is that when a high tone falls at the end of a phrase, it's either not pronounced or backshifted to the syllable before it. So you can see, for example, here on ufa, I've marked the high tone on the last syllable. But just note that because I'm going through these and we're going to hear them in list form saying individual words, even though you see the high tone in writing at the end of the word, you won't hear it pronounced. Now, let's listen to a native speaker say the 5 example words here.
Amalume, edzi, inde, onda, ufa.
When 2 vowels are combined, when they wind up next to each other, either in a word or as a result of adding infixes, W or Y have to come in between them. You cannot have 2 different vowels side by side, although sometimes you'll see this in older Malawian writing. So for example, the first word here is I, which means no. Historically, this was also written ai without the Y in the middle, just AI. This is no longer accepted, but you might see it in some older writing. These are just some example words. So another one is ea and another owl. Originally, I wanted to make a table showing whether you should put Y or W, but it's really heavily dependent on the context. And I just say that so you don't think that Y always has to go between A and I, for example. In certain words, it could be different. For example, Malawi. The last thing I'll point out here is if you have a double vowel, that lengthens the vowel sound. So for example, this word is pronounced foka, not fuka. Chichewa doesn't have many doubled vowels like this, and where they exist, they're almost always indicated in writing. The few exceptions to the rule that they're indicated in writing are grammatical particles that are really predictable, and we'll get into those later. So let's listen to a native speaker pronounce these example words.
I, ea, au, foca.
And that's it. In the next video, we'll go over consonant sounds that are the same in English and Chichewa and do some practice exercises with pronunciation.